Thank you everyone for being here and to listen to Father and Son have a chat in front of you all. You're getting the insight into the Lennox clan, and I particularly thank you for the opportunity to have a go at my dad at Christmas. What's Christmas without, giving your old man a hard time? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pepper him with all sorts of questions, but we simply want to have a conversation about life and why and how knowing Jesus Christ has an impact on that and actually makes a difference. So to jump straight in.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Dad. Good to see you this morning.
You were late this morning, so.
I was coming from outside the city. Anyway, always have excuses, don't you? Sons always have a good excuse. A big question that comes immediately to mind, and this is something that I hear a lot from my friends who do not believe in Jesus Christ whatsoever, is that we were born in the West. We're born in Northern Ireland, where arguably Christianity is at least perceived to be the number one religion. So the argument would go that you were brought up in Northern Ireland, you were brought up in a Christian home, and because of that, you're a Christian. In other words, Dad, were you indoctrinated by your parents, and in turn, have you indoctrinated me?
Well, you're going to have to answer that second question. I wouldn't know. I understand the question. I suppose by that logic, none of us would be Christians, would be all worshipping the ancient Irish gods. It isn't true to think that people simply stay within the tribe that they're born or within the belief system into which they're born. But I do understand the question. And having come across lots of folks who were force-fed Christianity or other religions, I do understand the importance of it. I feel very fortunate to have had the parents that I had. Some of you probably know my background, brought up in Armagh. My dad is a businessman. He had what was known then as a department store. I'm not sure if such a thing actually exists anymore, but those are in the good old days of retail. So I was brought up there. And of course my parents taught me what they believed, but there's a big difference between teaching what they believed and force-feeding me. They were great at providing a context in which I was allowed to think, I was allowed to read. We had some amazing books in our home, including the Communist Party Manifesto, which I'm sure you've all read avidly. I have to confess I only got reading the preamble and part of the first chapter. But that's the kind of atmosphere I grew up in, where we weren't force-fed. I knew clearly what my parents believed, but they never told me that because I was brought up in a Christian home, by definition, I was a Christian. They always taught me that was to be something that I needed to decide for myself. I needed to think it through. And we had all kinds of things in our home, in our environment, guests coming, exposure to ideas. We had the National Geographic magazine, which certainly exposes you to all sorts of weird and wonderful things, as well as many good things. But so that was the atmosphere, and I'm very thankful for that. And I saw it in action with my father, particularly in the way he employed in business, and his fairness and the way he treated all people. His basic conviction was that every human being was created in the image of God and therefore had infinite value, and he sought to treat everybody like that, and that was the context. So what about you?
Well,
you were very disappointed in your parents, I understand.
Well, I didn't have a choice. Born into this family, I have you as a dad, and I'm a son of a...
I mean, you nearly ruined us financially, you realise that? He was number 4, and we had to get a bigger car and move house when you were born, Simon, so...
Sorry.
Anyway, I interrupted you there.
Well, I'm born in this family with you guys. I was born into a church plant as well. I'm a son of a preacher man. I've heard a lot of your sermons. I've listened to my sister, who's a worship singer, sing all the time. So it could look like I was indoctrinated with all sorts of voices telling me that Christianity is what you should believe. But I would say the same way you were brought up, given room to think, to step back from it all and think it through for yourself was real for me and crucial, because it would be put to the test very soon, especially as I moved out of childhood. So responding as a child, I was taught Christianity, I wasn't taught Islam, I wasn't taught Buddhism, but it would be a number of years later when I would need to question and ask my own questions myself and look into it myself. So I think the crucial aspect, to be fair, to give everybody credit as a human being and give them dignity, we have been made with the capacity to think, made with the capacity to reason and respond intelligently. So that I was given room for that. But whether I just thought it was a good idea up here or believed it in my heart, that came later on when it was put to challenge. And so that's what I'd like to throw back at you. So you thought for yourself and you came to the conclusion that what your parents had passed on to you was true, that Jesus Christ is who he says he is. But has it been plain sailing since then? Have you doubted it? Have you questioned it? Did you face any major challenges?
Well, I think being a teenager back in the 60s, which is where a lot of the contemporary ideas emerged back then, with the Beatles and the drug culture and the relativism and all of that. So it was an interesting time to be alive, as it is today, and there were all kinds of challenges. I suppose I could summarize them in three major ones that I can think of. There was a moral challenge, first of all, within myself. Growing up, growing up as a young man, seeing what was on offer, and understanding the Christianity of my parents, but did I really want to live this way? I went to an all-boys school, and the guys, of course, were known to brag about what they got up to at the weekend, and my weekend, in comparison, sounded terribly dull. So there was that, and so I had to really question myself, especially when it came to the sixth form. Is this really what I want to go for? Because there's so much other. And I could see that, in a sense, the Christianity was there, and then all this other stuff, and how did I work that together? So there's a bit of a moral challenge. There's also an intellectual challenge in those, was it true? And those two things fitted together for me, because I wasn't going to give my life to something that I knew was false. That's not what faith is. Faith is not believing something you know isn't true. My parents always taught me to examine and look at stuff, so that faith is a response to evidence, not just some vague leap into the dark or something that falls upon you from above. So that was helpful to think it through. But I got to the point in late teens where I was ready to chuck it in. And then my big brother happened to be home from university. He saw his face up on that screen. And I mentioned to John that I'm just not sure whether I'm going to continue with this Christianity thing. And he said, well, before you throw it out, make sure you examine the evidence for it. And that's all he said. And that, I thought, evidence? What do you mean, evidence? What evidence is there? I didn't realize there was evidence. So that started me then to think, well, being honest, I do need to look at this, because if it's true, then it means everything. If it's not true, really, I can just discard it. So that got me started looking, particularly at the historical evidence of the resurrection of Jesus, and that just blew me away. And suddenly I realized that I didn't have to kiss my brain goodbye to be a Christian, to entrust myself to this. But it also then brought the challenge, well, if this is true, then this is number one, and everything else comes secondary to that. This is the central thing. So those are two of the big ones.
I would love to jump on that one.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Evidence, the big challenge to me in that is I've got friends who are living in college, who are living in this world too. We're all looking at the same evidence, but drawing different conclusions.
Yeah.
So one person is looking around them and hopefully they've read into things, but are coming on the side, no, this is rubbish, this is a fairy tale. But others are looking at the evidence and believing there is a God. Why? What is going on there? Or how did you find that?
Well, I can really only answer the question personally because everybody has their own story. And as far as I was concerned, it was looking at the historical evidence, the existence of the church, the New Testament documents, the evidence within those, the evidence of experience, of seeing the reality of Christianity in the lives of people, seeing how it changed folks, and the sense that this actually made sense of things, made sense of longings for value and significance. I mean, I could see through the literature I was reading, mostly French literature, existentialism, for those who may remember A-level literature, if you ever did that, and what life is like without God. And it just didn't make sense to me that all the longings of the human heart for significance and value, love, all of those things actually don't make sense in an impersonal universe. So there were a number of strands, and even the fact that my brother was a really bright guy, a mathematician and a scientist, and there were a number of others, that I realized this is not about intellectual ability. There's something else going on here, because some of the brightest people in the world aren't Christians, but some of the brightest people in the world are. So it's not about intelligence in the end. It goes back to that moral commitment very often. Am I willing to follow this where it goes? Am I willing to accept and look at the evidence honestly? And up to that point, I'd never really looked at it for myself. I'd heard the stories, but there hadn't been an honest personal examination, and that's what changed things for me. But for you, what was that like?
And I think the first major challenge, and this can sound petty and so simple, but it was a social pressure. So being brought up in a Christian home, then it was put to task as soon as I started socialising. And because I was really encouraged not to be a Christian and just join in with everyone else. So before you even get to the intellect, even thinking through the evidence, I could easily stick out like a sore thumb because I didn't jump into the same sort of social activity. So, and this sounds so simple, but alcohol was like the decider. What you did with alcohol told people who you are, or certain things that you went or didn't do. These are people who aren't Christians putting that judgment on me before I even said anything because of their perceived understanding of what a Christian is. So at first there was a big social pressure, and that led to, I think, a turning point around 15, 16, when I did jump into it, give into the pressure, wanted to see what life is like on the other side with these guys. But coming through that, I just felt even more empty, because I think a big challenge in that time, I kept trying to find value in what other people thought of me, and that brought a lot of insecurity. So you can easily jump in, but then seeing through that, going through some experiences, woke me up to being afraid of where is that going if you're living through the same thing, going through the same cycle every week. I wanted to know there's more, so that caused me to look back to what my parents had shared with me or what I heard, and to ask again, God, who are you? Like, is this true? And I started to ask questions and look for myself, and this may be embarrassing to say, but it was a quote in Gladiator. What a movie. But seriously, movies are powerful. There's a quote.
Mean you were allowed to watch movies in our house, were you?
I was. That was not forbidden. I was allowed to go to the cinema. Thank you for that.
That's all
Not
right.
depriving me. But before the opening scene, the opening battle, Russell Crowe, he's with his own men, and he inspires them before this battle against the barbarians. I think I can't remember the opposition, and he said, "What you do in life now echoes in eternity." That was enough for me to look ahead, not just now and the friends around me, but to look further ahead. Where is life going? What is this? What is its purpose? What is its meaning? So asking that question was significant. To then lead me to a second turning point, I would say, our major challenge, going to university at Oxford and reading theology, surrounded by some of the brightest minds in the world, professors and students, has frightened me at how fiercely bright they were in discussions. And that's when the intellectual challenge came, and it was possibly, in a sense, ripped apart, in that I was forced to question even deeper. And a lot of my understanding of Christ was based on the Bible. I found out about Jesus by looking at the Bible, but suddenly that was put to the test and questioned and not seen as relevant or authoritative. So that just, in terms of the foundation of my faith, was rocked, really challenged, and put me in a bizarre place, which came to a point when I went on a tour of Israel, and I was standing on the hills of Jerusalem looking over towards Golgotha, where Jesus Christ was killed. And I just could not understand or make sense of the mess of what I saw. There's so many religions, so many people trying to find their way around. Is Christianity true? And it calls me again, who are you, Jesus Christ? If you're the distinguishing factor between all these ideas and philosophies of life, then Jesus, who are you? And that's a good time for the alarm bell, because that's the big question, isn't it? Who is Jesus Christ? It comes down to that. And that kicked off a journey to find out and discover his specific claims. And with that as well, there's all sorts of other challenges, but I want to flip it back to you, because I could keep talking. Because, yes, you could believe in something and think, oh, it's great, it gives me comfort, makes me feel good. But we're all living in real life. We're facing all sorts of things that are difficult. Also, we're facing death, we're facing illnesses, challenges, or insecurities. So, what difference has it made to your life to believe in Jesus Christ and follow him?
I suppose in summary, one of the main things would be to say that it provided a fixed point for me in terms of all the decisions, in terms of values, in terms of what I was living for. Coming to see that Jesus was not just a historical figure, he was and is the Son of God. He did come. This is true. He is going to come back again. And my life has meaning in the light of that. Then that brought everything together. I think for a lot of folks, life is just a series of short-term horizons. There's the exam, and you get the exam, then there's another exam, and then there's the next thing, and then there's a job, and then you hope you meet someone, or maybe that's before the job, and you get married, and and so on. I know that changes slightly as culture develops, but it just tends to be short-term, and then suddenly you wake up, like me, and you're 64, and you think, what on earth went on? How did that happen? And what's this all about? But having that fixed point, having that core for my life has made that hasn't happened. And therefore everything then has been seen through that lens, and that has been so useful. And you're right, there are the challenges of life, the financial challenges, bringing up a family, 4 children, as you know, and all of that, and the demands of that. And then, some of the big unexpected turns, for example, your mum being diagnosed with cancer. And that then brings many things to a shuddering halt, and you're faced with questions that you can't answer. And of course there are many other questions I can't answer, but these why questions. Why is God allowing this? And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't have an answer to that, no easy answer. And yet I found with Christ, with Christianity, it doesn't provide pat answers, but it provides a window into hope. That's so different from my atheistic friends who have no hope. And it's just basically all they could say to us was tough luck. That's what happens, that's the way it goes, too bad. But for us, even though we don't understand the why and all the ins and outs of it, and we would have written the script for our lives differently very often. Christianity provides hope because of the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. That's what makes the difference. The big thing that people don't want to talk about really is death, because there's no answer to it, except the answers that Hollywood comes up with to try to make believe and smooth it all out. But the reality is it faces all of us. And the only person who's ever gone through death, come up on the other side, defeated it, is Jesus. And that is what makes this so different. So while, no, I didn't have all the answers, and yes, life was rocked on many occasions, this provided a central core, which has remained solid.
Yeah, well, when I was very young, when Mum got sick, and maybe I haven't lived long enough to experience what life can throw at you. I'm 31. I'm looking ahead.
Is that all?
Yeah, I am 31. You're looking further back, and
am.
you've seen a lot. So looking ahead and hearing the wisdom and experiences of others means a lot. And I think it's an important question about what difference it makes in the day. Is it just this belief that makes you feel good? Or does it actually have an impact now? And taking on that question very briefly, I've held on to a passage in Romans, the letter written by Paul, one of the pioneering missionaries of the Christian faith in Europe. And in chapter 6, we have, towards the end, Paul sharing the benefits of knowing God through Jesus Christ. And he says two things that stuck with me in my heart. One is that it leads to holiness, and the second one is that it results in eternal life. What I mean by holiness is not that suddenly hello everyone, I'm perfect, I've got it all right, I make no mistakes. But I see a lot of my friends who are living by great morals and they want to be a better person all the time. Well, here's the source to become an even better person by going to your Creator himself, Jesus Christ, and that leading to a real impact on how I think and what decisions I make, and even viewing life as an investment. So being in private equity, my employer constantly encouraged me to think bigger, think broader, and even view life itself as an investment. How are you going to use your time? When are you going to invest it in just this life or the life to come? So that set at priorities for me whenever I'm facing is that life is going somewhere, and life is more than just the material. And believing in Jesus Christ results in certainty and assurance now that you will be going to what God has planned, that we're all going towards next. That is a great hope that I will hold on to whatever hits in the coming days, because you're right, the why question, you don't get answers to all the why question, but there is someone that we can hold on to. But before we finish, go back to the point of the fact that you're 30 years older than me. Just shouldn't have given that away. Now you know his age. But you are both looking further back, but also looking ahead. So what's the future? What's ahead as you think about life and your faith in Jesus Christ?
Well, of course, I don't know what lies ahead in terms of how events are going to transpire here, but one of the things that my parents did, which was very wise, they brought interesting people to our home when we were young and growing up. People who were living in exotic parts of the world, people who had given their lives to share this message of Christ with others in other cultures. And so from a very early age, I had that as a paradigm, that life is about more than myself, my comforts, my happiness, all of that, that there is a bigger picture here, and that we're here for a purpose. And God had given me opportunities, a personality, certain gifts, certain experiences, and none of that is wasted as far as He is concerned. When we compare ourselves with others, we might think, oh, I wish I was like him, or I wish I was like her. But each uniquely tailored with circumstances and gifts and so on, that there is a purpose, and I'm still here, so clearly that purpose is still to be developed. I'm obviously thinking much more in terms of legacy, in terms of investment in younger men and women, as I do in terms of my current work, and doing a little bit of writing in my grandkids, and still in you guys. Occasionally you need me to be around, I think. So that provides, lots of things for me to do in my semi-retirement currently. But also this bigger picture of being part of something much bigger, and having some kind of, I trust, positive influence on those around me and people in other countries, because I travel a little bit, in terms of sharing the message of Christ, in terms of teaching the Bible, and helping people to work out how it applies to daily life. So that, it's a very exciting time to be alive. I've had the fun of trying to learn about digital technology and what a mouse is and all of that. You don't use them anymore as the thing, so you keep shifting. But what an interesting time to be a younger person, to be in business, to be in professional life, and all the opportunities as well as the challenges that are there, and the potential for influence is amazing. So on that level, despite all the challenges, there is some of life's biggest battles are towards the end. I know that, and there's some big battles I'm sure ahead of me. But there is so much there to live for and to look forward to, And for you?
Well, I don't know how long I have, and just because you're 64, it doesn't mean I've got the dark 50 years ahead of me. From others around me and others who follow the Lord who are older than me and in business, I've loved the example that I don't have to separate my trust in Jesus Christ and leave it at home or leave it in church on a Sunday, but it bring it right into the workplace, and it has a very positive impact, because we've all been gifted. Most people here, I guess, are in business and have been gifted to do business so well. They know much more than me, but viewing that as a gift from God and wanting to pursue it and develop it and do the best you can with it had a big impact. That was just one example of drawing them in together. It's the gift from somebody who actually made me, and it has an impact not only now but on the life to come. So that viewpoint of looking even ahead of myself inspires me, and I think those three turning points again in my life. I had a near drowning incident as a child, and that woke me up as a child that, whoa, I'm a bit frail, things aren't quite certain. I had the gladiator moment in mid-teens, what you do in life now echoes in eternity. And then I had that on the hills of Jerusalem moment, asking then Jesus, who are you and what difference does it make? So holding on to the common trend there is looking at life in light of what is to come, and knowing that I can be sure of it now in Jesus Christ. And that is a powerful reminder of what we see at Christmas, with God himself making himself known ultimately in Jesus Christ and becoming flesh. But before we move on back into your days, just as a final word for everyone, what would you say?
As a final word, I think one of the big struggles I had, which I haven't mentioned, in my teens, was seeing people who claimed to be Christian on Sunday and didn't appear to be for the rest of the week. And I'm sure that may have been said of me, so it's not a matter of pointing fingers, it is a matter of realising, I think what C.S. Lewis said was that if Christianity is false, then in the end it's just of no importance. If it's true, then it is of infinite importance. The one thing it can't be is of moderate importance. And the trouble is, I think a lot of us live in that sort of moderate type thing. And that's a mistake. If it's true, and I believe it is with all my heart, then it's worth giving yourself wholeheartedly to. There's no other life that makes sense. This is not about hedging your bets or living practically as an agnostic, but rather realizing that if this is true, then it's worth giving everything to. And that's what I would encourage us all to do, is to think it through at that level. This isn't some pastime, this isn't some club for a Sunday, this isn't a way to seem good and keep up appearances to your parents or to your culture or whatever to fit in. This is the core, this is the central reality of life.
Yeah, and taking on from that, and another C.S. Lewis quote, either Jesus is a liar or he's an absolute madman, he's a lunatic that's filled so many, or he is indeed who he says he is. He is Lord, he is God incarnate, and that's what it comes down to. And if he is Lord, and I believe he is, according to evidence as well as experience and what I see around me, it is very good news, because I do not have to earn my way or do a certain number of good things to be accepted by Jesus Christ, and that is liberating. My Creator wants to know me and has given himself so that I can deal with what's separating me from him, and that is my moral failures, my weaknesses. But instead I just experience the love of Jesus Christ, and that witnessed and epitomised by him giving himself for me and rising again. If that's not true, then he's a liar or a lunatic, but I certainly believe that he is Lord, and that is what everyone's going to be, I guess, challenged with again, particularly at Christmas. Is he Lord? So thank you, Dad, for letting me have a go at you in public, and thank you for listening to the conversation.